Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you're having a great day. In today's video, I'm going to review Elixir's Set.a.Light 3D, which is a light simulation program that will let you practice your lighting and work out problems right in your computer, and you don't even have to be anywhere near a studio. And it's really a great software to help you do those sort of things. My disclosures up front are that I bought the program with my own money in late 2021, and so I've been using it for about a year and a half. So today I'm going to share my experiences with you. I've worked out with Elixir so that if you use the affiliate link in the description, you will be able to also use the coupon code John15, and that will save you 15% on the program, and it will help support me making these videos. It also will help you get a discount on this software. Know that they did not sponsor this video. They do not in any way have editorial control over anything that I'm going to say. I will point out for you the things that I like about it, some things that I think could be improved, and overall, I'm just gonna share with you my experience. Now, you probably noticed something if you've watched this channel several times before, and that's that there's something very different about today, and that is that I am wearing glasses. So I finally had to, accept the fact that I can't read text up close anymore without the help of these readers. And so I was out to breakfast with my friend Deanna Robles, whose Instagram is Love Print Photography, if you want to check it out. And she suggested, as I was reading the menu, that I make one of these videos wearing my glasses because she thought that it looked good. So I guess let me know in the descriptions if you like this kind of look. I usually have the text on my computers turned up so I can see them without the need for my readers, but it's something to think about. So let's go ahead and jump in the software here and see, what it does and sort of, what's going on with Elixir. So this image that you see right here, it's the one that I created the very first time that I used this software. And I'm going to go over sort of different ways that I've used the software very quickly. I'm going to give you a demonstration of what it's like using the software and give you a little more detail. I was trying to figure out, after looking at some inspiration images, how this old Hollywood style studio called Hardcore in Paris was creating their images. And I saw their BTS. And what I did is I started moving in different lights from the software into the scene and adjusting their power so that I could figure out kind of where my lights needed to be to get the same look, and if the approach that I was going to use with the equipment that I planned on using was going to work, and sort of get a rough plan as to which lights I needed with which modifiers and which locations with the power settings for those lights. The software spits all of that out, and that's what the great thing is about this light simulation software. So that's how I used it the very first time. I came up with this particular look, and you can see where all the lights are in the scene. I'm using one in the background, two kickers, a hair light, a main light, and a fill light. And all of those are working together in concert to get the final image. And then I just sort of ended up using a slightly different setup than my plan, and this was the result. And as you can see here in the software, as we move around, you can get a sense of where every light is. And just to give you a sense of what the software does, let's say that we wanted to look at this optical snoot back here. If we wanted to turn the brightness up, it would show us what that would look like in the final image, or we could just press undo and go back to where we were. If you wanted to, you could change this out from an optical snoot to, let's say, a 7-inch reflector, and then you could come in here and say that you needed it a lot brighter, and maybe you wanted to put a grid spot on it, let's say a 10-degree grid, because you only wanted that light to show up on part of the background, and then you could move it around. You could manipulate the light so that it aimed in just the location that you were going for. And that would be a much cooler and more desirable look than where we started with this modifier. Now let's look at another way that I use it. I use it on this shoot here because when I was on set, I really couldn't get what I was going for. I was trying to sort of paint a rainbow on the model's face, and I just sort of had to compromise for what I was able to get and just sort of move on from there. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up modeling the scene with different lights and moving them in different locations and turning the power up and down until I got vaguely the light that I was going for from this shoot. And then I went out in the real world the next time that I had a shoot and created this image, which looks a lot better. Well, I shouldn't say a lot better, but it looks different than the original, and it was more true to what I was going for. So the software helped me out in that way. Another great thing that the software is able to do, at least I believe if you get the Pro version, and as far as I know, the difference between the two versions is that one of them has 3 set studio sizes, and that's it. And the other one lets you change the studio size to be whatever you are looking for. And that's the software that I have. So I was able to do crazy things like even sort of model this train, if you will, and have all the lighting there with it. So you can't, the software doesn't have a train, but it does have a lot of different props that you can use. And you can also use these just shapes to build a sort of image, that thing that looks sort of similar to the shape that you're lighting if you can't find the actual shape. So that's something to think about as well. And I've actually used the software to model my entire studio, including the corner that I'm sitting in right now recording this video. And I did it in advance of moving into the studio, knowing that I might want to change my plan based on how it would look, or I wanted to at least have the sense of what it would feel like if I stepped into the scene or I stepped into the room. And I'd want to know what my customers might feel coming into the room, and I might want to figure out what was the most efficient way for me to plan out the space. So there's a lot of different ways that you could use it. And one of those ways is, of course, if you want to practice. Now I'm going to go into a corner of the studio, this studio that I modeled here, that wall that's right here behind me. I'm going to show you that in the software. I'm going to take everything out of it first so you can get an idea of what it looks like as we start adding elements into the scene. Just know that the very first time that I used this software, it probably took me about 30 minutes to an hour per lighting setup to model it because I didn't know what I was doing. Now that I've used the software for a long time, I'm probably able to knock out a setup in about an hour. I'm sorry, in about 10 minutes. And that would be a lot quicker than if I did it in the real world, because in the real world, it might take me an hour to move the lights around. You're able to move a lot quicker in the software. And so that's another good thing about it, is that you're able to solve those problems maybe even quicker than you can on set. So let me go ahead now and start with our demo, and you'll see what it looks like with the blank studio. All right, so as we look down here on the bottom, you can see that there are all sorts of model choices. Let's just go ahead and grab Jessica here, and we'll drop Jessica into our scene. And she's not turned around for us very well right now, but let's turn her around going kind of our direction. That feels fine. You can choose any of these models. They're all customizable. You'll see that in just a second. Next thing here on our tools at the bottom, we have the mono lights and all of these modifiers to choose from hard lights to soft lights to strip lights, and so on and so forth. We also have a number of modifiers with just speed lights if you're using speed lights. They have, and then you have all these continuous light choices from big ARIs to, let's say, a Pavo tube, for instance, or, well, it says Titan tube, but let's say it's a Pavo tube from Nanlite. And then there are all these helpers that you can see here, like backgrounds and reflectors and that sort of thing. And then there are props. So the first thing we're going to use here is the picture wall. I'll show you that in just a second. But you can see that there are cameras and sofas and chairs and desks and beds and TV sets and toilets, and you could make a band, you can put in plants, you can put in a ladder, you can put in furniture that you can color. There's food. There's also handbags and cars and Christmas trees and drapes and gym equipment. It goes on and on and on. All sorts of things that you can put into the software and manipulate. But let's go to the picture wall. I'm going to drag this in here to the scene. You'll see all of a sudden that Jessica is here at the beach in Aruba, which is a little bit of a problem because I want her to be in front of a painted backdrop. So what you're going to do is you're going to come over here to the presets and picture template. And we've got beach, but once you've loaded a JPEG or a PNG or maybe even a TIFF into the software, and you click on it over here, it's going to load in immediately. So just if you wanted to add a new one, you just click on this plus icon and navigate to where you had the photo of your backdrop and drop it in. So that's what I've done. The next problem is that the size is all wrong. So coming down here to the size, I'm going to change the width to 6.5 because that's about how wide my canvas backdrops are. I'm going to undo the unlock here. That's the proportion lock. We don't need that. I'm going to make the height now 9 feet because that's how they roll back here on the rack. And I'm just going to move it into position, and that looks about right. So now let's bring a light into the situation. We'll click on mono light over here. I'm going to grab a 5-foot octabox, or 150 centimeters, or 59 inches as it's listed in the software. And I'm going to drop that into the scene. And you can see the top view over here in the bottom right. And that might be a better way for you to manipulate where things are going. And these lines that you see showing up on the screen, they're showing you where the light beams are going and what happens when they hit other things. That's what's going on there. If I click on the light here and I click on this person icon, it's going to turn towards a person. And if I keep clicking it, it will point towards Jessica. Now we've got it pointed at Jessica. And I think that's probably fine for now. I'm just going to move it off to the side for a second. The most important thing we get now is the camera. I think that's under the props. I'm going to grab this camera and put it in here. And then the next thing, this icon just to the right of the camera, this one will make it the active camera. And then we'll press the model icon. It will turn towards the models in the room. And there it's turned towards Jessica. Now, you'll see right now that over here in the camera dialog box, it's set to a 4:5 crop. That's the dreaded Instagram crop. We're using a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. Our shutter is 1/125th. Our f-stop is f9, and this is simulating what would happen if our flash went off. And then right over here, this is actually in black and white mode, so we'll put it in color mode. And then this is the zoom of our lens. We'll get it back over here to about 85 millimeters, sort of the portrait standard, if you will, and we'll use that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to back my camera up significantly here. So we've got a 3/4 length view of Jessica, and I think that feels pretty good. All right, and then we'll come over to the light. Now on the light, I can change all sorts of different light models over here. I can make my own preset as well. But let's say that we're going to go with the Canon EOS C70, the one that I use, and we're going to have it at full power. And that does look about right for what we're dealing with right now. The Canon 5 is the same. It's just battery powered. I'm going to go ahead and feather my light just by grabbing the back of the softbox and turning it to the side. It should give us more pleasing light. And I'm going to change my perspective here to just look at this. Normally I have the bottom of the softbox sort of equal with the bottom of the jaw. So having the light about 6 feet off the floor, it feels about right at the moment. Okay, let's go with that. So we've got very nice pleasing light here on Jessica, and I think it's fine. She looks a little dim. Maybe I'll open up just a little here. Let's open her up to 7.1. All right, there's Jessica. I think that looks fine. Let's go into our next sort of things that we can manipulate. So let's manipulate Jessica herself. I'm going to change my view here so you can see Jessica unobstructed by the camera and zoom in a little bit so that she's bigger. So if I click on Jessica, you'll see in the top left-hand corner here, we have the style. So I can give Jessica, I'll scroll up to the top. I can change her hair to be anything I want. Let's go with this auburn hair. It sort of is the opposite of complementary. Is it adjacent? It's one of those things, but it goes well with her blue top. Then we can change her hair color to be anything we want. It could be black, but let's keep it this reddish color. I think that looks great. We could change her clothing to be anything that we want to, but I think we're going to pretend this is a business portrait, so we'll keep her in the outfit that we started with. And then we can decide, does she want a jacket? Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. Let's keep the jacket on. We can change her top to be different. Let's turn the jacket off. We'll change her top from the sweater to the bikini to that. We could even make Jessica pregnant if we wanted to, but I don't think that we do. So let me undo that. Just know that these are options that are in here if you're a maternity photographer, for instance. So let's go back down here. We'll turn Jessica's jacket back on. I think that looks great. If we want to change the color of her shirt, we can do it. All the clothing is customizable. I do find that there's always options that sort of look like the clothing that you're going to end up with. Sometimes it's not as customizable as I would like, but it's customizable enough. I hope that makes sense. So I'm always finding limitations. I wish that they had stuff that was more varied and maybe a little more modern. Sometimes I feel that the clothing is a little old looking, but it's not really a problem. I think it's fine. We're just giving people ideas. And speaking of ideas, you could use this software, and I've done it before, to give my clients sort of a mood board of what I'm thinking about doing for them. Um, before going into a meeting on a commercial shoot so that they have an idea of what we're doing. I'm actually doing a commercial shoot soon where I'm going to have to execute 4 different looks in 10 minutes. And so I came up with a lighting plan using the software to figure out which lights I needed to turn on and off or move. And then I was able to export setup shots of all 4 setups in order to share those with my assistant. So we'll go over how you can export things as well, and what sort of things are included in those exports. But we'll get to that. So I think that looks fine. Let's just pretend that we want our shirt to be that. Let's make it bluish again. All right, that's great. Perfect. Great color, I guess. All right, we could change the fabric to be any of these fabric choices. As you can see, they are varied and many. The men actually have far less choices, far fewer choices, but know that that is a thing. You can change the pants to be, leggings or a skirt on this particular model. Each outfit has different customization options, so just know that those are all there. And you've got a lot of choices, and you could make an infinite number probably of models with what's included in the software. You could decide to give her glasses. Let's do that. It will give us a little bit of a challenge when it comes to reflections. And you could change the skin color to be darker or lighter. You could do it sort of any way that you want, but let's just keep it kind of where we were. I noticed right now she looks a little blue. That's because the Kelvin is set at 4,500 for some reason. Let's put it at 5,200, which is daylight. That's normally where I'm at, or daylight on my camera. If you want to, there are focus points for the camera over here. You just click on one and that'll keep us focused on the face. It's not important now, but maybe it would be important if we were shooting at 1.2 and it would focus on the background rather than the person. So that's something to think about. Let's go ahead and get her out of the skirt and back in those pants. All right, that feels better to me. All right, so I think that's good. We can also change her makeup if we wanted to, but we'll just leave it, where it is right now. Now, when it comes to the pose, there are all sorts of preset poses in the software, and there are standing poses for women that you can see here. There are even sitting poses for women. And there are lying poses, and there are all sorts of poses for men as well. It's not a very good one. Let's say something like that. But let's get her back into this first pose. I think that should look just fine. And that's good. Now, there is some buttons here on her that are pretty important. So this one right here, this is going to make her head go towards the camera. This is going to make her eyes look in the camera. Those are 2 things that we might want to do. We also can rotate her body fully. I feel like that's a better look for her right now. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this head towards camera thing off. Then I'm going to go over to the posing mode right here. And that's going to allow me to change how her face is going. So in this first one, we sort of just have access to turn her around in different positions. And it might not be as accurate as you would like, or, but it does sort of work. Yeah, let's say something like that. Or we could change the axes of her neck. You can change every axis on the body in the software to be whatever you want it to be. It will do things that are unnatural and uncomfortable, but know that you can do that even down to the finger, individual fingers and finger folds and that sort of thing. So there are lots of options to do anything that you want to do, any pose that you want to do. And then you can save those poses. If I didn't say it earlier, you could make your own pose and then save it for later and apply it later. So I actually have about 6 or 7 that I have in my repertoire that aren't in the software that I have saved in my desktop, not in my laptop, but those are there. If we wanted to, we could click on our hand in this mode and we could just grab it and start manipulating it up and down with this green part. We could grab the red part and manipulate it side to side if we wanted to, or we could grab the blue part, which would make it go towards the camera and away from the camera, but we don't really need that. I think her arms are just fine. We also could come over here to the body and we could make her look a lot bigger if we wanted to. I'm going to get the posing mode off just so you can see. Let's get her back to default size. We could make her, that's not default size. There we go. We could, if we wanted to, we could make her legs really small. We could make them really big. It's up to us. We'll just stick with the stock one. Then if we want to, I could even take her left hand here and change how her fingers are sitting. But I don't want to, so we'll just undo that. And, the options, like I said, they are infinite of all the parts of the body that you can change here. You can change the feet. You could even change the shoes, which I didn't look at earlier, but know that that's an option. You could change the expression on the face. You could make her look happy. You could just make her go back to her normal resting face if that's what you wanted. So you've really got a lot of choices that you can do here. And I think that looks pretty good overall. I think we might just move the camera and closer to her. Normally, because we're in this posing mode, we got to get out of it. And so we'll just come in here and move the camera a little closer. And we'll pan the camera up. We'll get our frame looking a little better. And you can see that, yeah, there is a reflection in her glasses. Now, we could remedy this. Maybe if we just move this over here. Now, there are two ways that the light can move as well. So one is that it's going to move on a target, which is what it's at right now. So no matter where I move, it's going to be pointed at that same object. That's actually not what I want. I want it to be, turn that off. I want it to just move freely. So maybe I move it over here and I still see the reflection. So maybe I just got to move this a little that way. Usually what happens is like playing pool. If you hit it at the side of the pool table head on, it's going to bounce back at you. So when light hits the glasses, it's going to bounce off and go that way. If that light comes into the camera, then it's going to go right in the lens and you're going to see it. So if I turn up here and I look at you, that light's hitting the lens and it's reflecting back directly at you. That's why you see it. But when I'm over here and I keep my chin down a little bit, you see nothing. That's because that light's hitting here. It's reflecting and going down there. I just had to look at the monitor to make sure that was true. All right, so when I click on her and I go into the posing mode, unfortunately what's going to happen is that they're no longer going to show us the light simulation in the preview window when I'm changing the pose, which is kind of stupid. Like, I need to turn the head in order to change the reflections, and I need to see what's happening, but they're not going to show that to me. They're only going to show me what happens with reflections if I'm out of the posing mode and moving the light. But sometimes I just need to move the person. So we're going to try moving the person, but we're going to have to do it sort of in an ad hoc way because I can't predict what's going to happen. I mean, I can't see it in real time. I'm just going to have to predict it. I think if I turn her head a little bit and bring her chin down a little bit, and then I leave posing mode, I think we will have eliminated the reflection. There we go. I clicked on posing mode. Now we still got it there. So now that didn't work. But now we got to manipulate the light. Let's maybe grab our light. Let's move it more perpendicular to her. Let's tilt it down some. See, and this is a real world example of how using the software can sort of teach you through the idea of what you're going to have to do to manipulate the light in the real world to solve a problem like this. I think I just got to tip it down some more. Okay, and I think that looks relatively good. So let's go ahead and look at the export options. So I can come over here to export, and it's going to ask me to make a new snapshot, which I will do. And a snapshot is just you recording your recipe into your timeline, which is good. And you can then save all of your snapshots together and use them later. So maybe you make one for black and whites, maybe you make one for gels, maybe you just make one and that's it. It's just really up to you. I use this primarily in my desktop, so I have different ones for different projects. So just know that that's a thing. Okay, so now let's look at the first template, and this is in the JPEG option. The PDF options have their own thing too, but I like the JPEG ones better. Um, just know that that's there. So you can have this collage. You can change what shows up on here too. You can say, I don't want to show the measurements. I don't want to show the grid. I don't want to show the information, and that sort of thing. You can also say, I don't want to show the walls. I don't want to show the floor, but you probably do. And I don't want to show, I want to up the brightness of my studio for the BTS, or I want to make it dark in here or something like that. And I might want to change the field of view for this screen over here. So, I know that we're on the opposite side of this room. So I'm just going to manipulate here with my mouse to get over there. And yeah, I've got to do it this way. And then I've got to, nope, too far. And then I got to turn around. So maybe this is the wrong field of view. Okay, maybe this is what I decide that I want. All right, maybe I decide this is what I want. This will help me figure out how to light this later. That's all that I'm going for. I can change the resolution to 4K if I want to. I can make there not be a text or not there be a border and that sort of thing. And that's how that looks. I can then change this around to be 2 BTS angles and an overhead. I can change it so it's just the overhead. I can change it so it's only an image of the scene. This is a shot that I have of the other set in my room that's all set up here. If I manipulate it, you can see where Jessica is over there. But this is what I was doing in the software last, was figuring out this lighting setup. So that's there. It's really going to go back to wherever you were last time when you click on these presets. We can change it to a final and a diagram. We can change it to a diagram and a BTS. We can change it just to a final. You can go over to the PDF and get, all sorts of info boxes here. Now, there are some other things that are here where you can save images that you make with the Elixir community, I believe. I've never done that. I don't really care to know about it. And I don't even know what this view thing is, but it's not really relevant to me and what I'm doing. I'm more interested in having, a game plan over here that I can then take out and send to an assistant, or maybe I send the final image to an art director and that sort of thing, and make sure that we're, this is what I'm going to do. We're all on the same page. This is how it's going to happen. That sort of thing. Maybe for you, you just want to use the program to practice, and that's totally cool too. Anyway, if you guys click on the link in the description and use the coupon code, you will get 15% off the software. And so go ahead and check that out. Hopefully it can help you on your lighting journey and improve your work. I know it's been very helpful in mine. So thank you so much for watching. Stay safe. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Maybe without glasses.